Hi, hand readers. Jennifer here from Johannesburg, longtime practitioner, teacher, and author of all things to do with chirology, palmistry, hand reading, palm reading, by whatever name. I've had an inquiry from a viewer named Naveen who's asked me to please speak about the ambition line or the Jupiter line and how to clearly identify it. And that is our topic today. Ambition lines, also known as Jupiter lines and lines of inspiration, begin high on life lines and ascend over Jupiter mounts. And of course, Jupiter mounts are the pads of flesh underneath index fingers, water fingers in five element system, and the finger of Jupiter in the palmistic system. And these lines that ascend over Jupiter are always going to be read in conjunction with the relative size of the mount, as well as the form, the length, and so on of the finger above. Of course, mounts are capacitors of energy, and their strength is determined by their size as well as their texture, how flabby they are, or firm they are, or large they are. And Jupiter will relate very much to qualities of personal authority and to leadership, and also to goals and expansion and ambition, and all the things that have to do with outreach, reaching out of oneself, aiming at aspiring towards betterment, aiming and aspiring to growth in some capacity, and also the longing and the seeking for recognition and for luck. And of course, the line on that ascending line, any ascending line is generally a very positive sign in hands, and in the five element system is always governed by fire, which gives the sense of energy involved here. And of course, this person will want that growth, that development, that broader outreach, that sense of purpose will be activated for them, and they will want recognition, and they will long for luck, if not be lucky, depending, of course, on the size and the form and the various features of the fingers and the mounts. In fact, any lines that rise from earth lines, from life lines that is, are known as effort lines. So the person is making the effort. There is energy that is going directed towards, and specifically towards the finger to which that line directs itself. Ambition lines, obviously, towards Jupiter, but then there are other effort lines or ambition lines, in a sense, we could call them even, depending on your perspective, that might even run off to the baby finger or certainly to the ring finger in certain instances, and of course also to the middle finger. Those will have different meanings depending on the direction towards which those particular effort lines ascend and run. A true ambition line is one long, strong line that is clearly etched and that rises from the lifeline and runs high over Jupiter. This is a brilliant example in this photograph. It actually comes from my book, Signs and Symbols on the Mounts. And in this picture, you can see one of the best samples of an ambition line that I could find in my extensive collection of palm prints. So again, the reach of the line towards Jupiter's capacity for greater possibility is an indicator that efforts are being made. There's an aspiration in the person to betterment. The person will be compelled in some capacity towards elevation of their circumstances. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean material and financial ambition. Ambition could take the form of even spiritual ambition or creative ambition or altruistic ambition or academic ambition. So there's all these variables, and of course we cross-reference the hand as always to determine where the emphasis might be with regard to what it is that they most long for. Where do these people invest their energies? Is it to be independent, perhaps? Is it to be successful? Perhaps there's a visionary component in the person. There's definitely some inspiration towards. And this is the thing about ideals in some capacity. The line boosts something. And in turn, the person might have the capacity to boost others. So there's something about, again, recognition and respect that might come with this feature. But of course, if the Jupiter mount is also tiny or flabby, then we have a contradiction here. And one would need to do that inquiry. As I always speak about, some kind of counseling theme always emerges. If it's a very flabby and weak-looking Jupiter, well, there'd be disappointment. There'd be a crisis of failure. Whereas if the Jupiter mount is very full and, or rather appropriately full, we don't want to see mounts that are too full, because too full and flabby reveals a kind of a laziness. There's a lack of usage of the capacity within that mount. So there's a relativity here. We want a nice, firm, large Jupiter mount. And then the person's crisis, interestingly, might be around success. So you could say to them, you are ambitious, or maybe you've achieved your ambition, and yet you might be struggling with certain consequences that come with that success and ambition. And let's explore what those might be. That would be my area of inquiry in that conversation. Thinking about the various types of crisis that might go with the ambition line, and either the realization or non-realization of ambition, this is really a very deep inquiry. And believe me, a success crisis can be as daunting and as terrifying and as, shall I say, damaging as the kind of crisis that many of us experience when we feel we've failed. And it's really a worthy area of conversation and inquiry when you're sitting with a client around how do they really feel about themselves? Does their image meet their capacity for success? Often there'll be a self-sabotaging component if it doesn't. And again, with the opposite of that, when the person has no self-confidence in terms of not having achieved their ambitions and ideals, then of course one can give support and encouragement and even proactive cognitive advice and guidance as to how they might up-level themselves. So the ambition line really does open the conversation for some kind of inquiry into what is going on in terms of how successful does the person experience themselves to be. I must also emphasize that complete absence of the ambition line certainly doesn't mean that that person isn't striving towards betterment, striving towards some kind of purpose or goal in life. On the contrary, but what it does do, or rather what these lines do offer us hand readers, is clear and visible confirmation that the person is motivated towards self-development in some capacity. In next week's video, I'll talk about writer's forks, which is when the airline or the headline in the palmistic system splits into two at its end. If you'd like a reading with me, you're so welcome to contact me. If there's anything particular you'd like me to chat with you about here on YouTube, please make a comment below. And also, if you'd like to study with me, you're so welcome. Of course, I do teach wonderful courses. Bye for now. See you next week.